Okay. Hi, everybody who is tuning in right now. We are going just to wait for a few more people to join us. We have about 14 people who are going to be joining us. Oh. Hi, everybody. Now, I started speaking and it wasn't live yet. So hi, everybody. Welcome to our panel discussion. We have some people who are waiting to get in. I'm going to give us a few minutes and get some more people. So hold on until we start. We'll just wait for a little while.
We are.
Okay. Keeps going back and forth between 14 and 11. So I'm not sure if people are having a hard time getting on, but I see something from Carmen. Carmen gives a couple more minutes. We're up to 17, so we're getting there. I'll give everybody a few more minutes to log on, and then we're going to get started in about 2 more minutes. Okay, so I'm actually going to get us started because we have some numbers that keep bouncing back up and down. So I figured let's get us started. So welcome everybody to those who's watching to our first virtual 5th grade panel discussion. So we're all trying new and different things during this pandemic and school closure. So I really appreciate your patience with us. Hopefully everything goes smoothly and we'll have no glitches. If we do, just bear with us. We're all navigating all these new platforms, so hopefully it will go well. I started this, I was telling the panelists that I started this when I first came to Salem a few years back because I realized that sometimes we need some more transition. We needed more transition between the elementary school and the middle school. So I decided at that time, wouldn't it be great, instead of hearing it from me or hearing it from the other adults, that it would be great to hear it from the people who just went through the transition themselves. So at that point, I started inviting sixth graders and their parents to come to Salem and have a meeting with us and answer some questions about what the transition is going to be like. So I will start with having each of the panelists introduce themselves and tell them their house, and then we'll go from there. You are more than free to write any questions you have as some of you are doing already, and some comments in the live feed so we can answer any of the questions. And for those who aren't able to watch today, this is recorded and will be up in the YouTube channel, so you can refer back to it. Even if you feel like, wait, what was the answer to that question? I don't remember, and you lost it, then you can go back and you could watch it at a different time. Another good news is for all you fifth graders, they are, Mrs. Javelin, who is the principal at Weber, is going to be hopping into your Google Meets over the next 2 weeks and introducing herself there. So if for some reason you feel like we finished this whole panel discussion and all of a sudden you had this question that you did not get to ask, write it down and make sure you bring it to your Google Meet when Ms. Javelin is there, and she'll be able to answer any questions that she has too. So without further ado, I am going to turn it over to Samantha. Why don't you start introducing yourself, and Mom introduce herself, and then we'll work our way through, and don't forget what house you're in.
Hi, I'm Samantha Benson Tyler, and I'm in Greenhouse.
Hi, I'm Beth Benson, and I have Samantha. My older daughter was also in the greenhouse.
I'm Sam, and I'm in Red.
I'm Amy, and I have a daughter who started Schreiber this year. She was in the Yellow House.
Hi, I'm Abby, and I'm in Yellow House.
I'm Jen Chinaman, and Abby's the youngest of 4, and I've been in Yellow for all of them. So.
Hi, my name is Anthony Gabrielli, and I'm in Yellow House.
Hi, my name is Marta, and Anthony is my first child at Weber.
Hi, I'm Abigail Zlotov, and I'm in Greenhouse.
And I'm Lori Zlotov, and this is also my oldest child and my first time at Weber.
Great, thank you. Right, so what I tried to do is find panelists from all different houses, and also parent representation for those who've been there and done this, and for those who it's the first time, because it can be a different experience all around. So I'm going to start with asking the panelists a couple of questions, and then, like I said, if any of the watchers wanted to jump in and ask a question, you're more than feel free to do so. So I'm going to start asking, I'm going to ask each of you the same question. It's, what was your biggest concern when you were in 5th grade, when you were sitting back where all the audience is watching now? What was your biggest concern about going to Weber? And once you got to Weber, was it still a concern? Samantha, why don't you start, and we'll go around the same way.
So one of my biggest concerns was getting lost and being late. So school, when they got to school, like tons of teachers were around, and it took a lot of the hours, and they were asking you anything that you help. And you can also ask your homeroom teacher for me if you have them to your classroom. And the teachers don't like care if you're late or not, because they know that it's a really big school, and they know like the first 2 weeks that you can be late without getting detention or
Perfect. I'm just going to ask everybody if they could mute as we're the panelists, just so we can hear a little bit better when the speaker speaks. Samantha was saying one of her biggest concerns was about getting lost when she first got there, and that basically in the beginning it was really helpful, and they helped her along. Is that right, Samantha? They capture that okay?
Dr. Franze, we lost your sound.
Oh, you couldn't hear me?
Yeah. There you are.
Okay, sorry. I was trying to
I'll
say,
give you the universal sign for we can't hear you.
I like that. I missed that. Samantha said to the audience that her biggest concern was getting lost, and that when she got there, that teachers were friendly and were able to help show them around. I'm saying that in a very short way, but I think that's what Samantha was saying. Sam, what was your biggest concern?
My biggest concern was probably the work. If there was going to be like a lot of, I think the homework was my biggest concern. Like if I would get a lot of homework. In the end, you don't get a lot of homework. I mean, I know the red house doesn't give a lot. I don't know about other houses, but yeah, it was good in the end. It wasn't a lot.
Great. Thank you, Sam. Abby, T.
So my biggest concern was like not being able to find my classes or like showing up late. But when I got there, all the teachers were like, the first couple days, they would allow you to come in late. They would just like tell you like this time you could go that way for like faster way. So yeah.
Thank you. Anthony, how about for you?
My biggest concern was probably seeing my friends because we were in different houses, but the way we saw each other was lunch or recess. And if your friends aren't in that lunch, you could always switch lunches if you need to.
That's great. I'm going to get back to that in 1 second, Anthony. So thank you for bringing that up. How about you, Abby?
I think my biggest concern was actually gym class because I'm not an athletic person, and I knew that gym class at Weber was going to be so much harder. And when I got there, it was still a big concern because we had to run the track almost every time, and that was the worst thing for me.
But how is that reflected in your grades so far? Are you a good gym student?
Yes, I've gotten A's, but
So you don't have to be athletic to get good grades in gym.
don't.
Okay.
Very good. And I want to go back to what Anthony touched upon about, well, actually, before I do that, parents, for first-time parents, what was your biggest concern about Weber?
So for me, the biggest concern was how accessible were the teachers and the counselor. So that was my biggest concern. I wasn't sure if I was able to ask questions regarding how Anthony is doing. And what I found that the Aspen program was so accessible and so easy to maneuver. And I don't know if Dr. Ferrante, if you'll speak a little bit more about Aspen and what it was, but I find that so helpful where you have a listing of all the teachers' emails and contacts, and it's really easy to log on. You just make a password and you actually get all your child's progress reports, their term grades, and anything else, notes, and what's going on.
Thank you. How about you, Mrs. Zlatoff?
I think that my concern, similar to Marta, was just like the difference between elementary school and feeling so close to your child's one teacher, like how I was going to maintain that kind of like oversight and supervision over her schooling, like having so many teachers that I was really not going to have a relationship with, and helping Abigail transition from like being really on top of like one teacher is giving assignments to all of a sudden having to now manage 8. And it was a little bit of a learning curve. I mean, it took us a little while to learn the best practices, but now that she's been doing it, like, and she sort of was able to adopt new study skills and new organizational strategies that she didn't necessarily need before, because one teacher, you sort of remember what one teacher says, but you can't rely on that when it's so many teachers. You know, once we got over that, it was much smoother sailing.
Great, thank you. Does any other parent want to jump in with a response to that?
I was going to say
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. One thing I was going to add that was also a concern for me, and what I used to do for Hannah, and what I did for Sammy this year also, is you can call a team meeting with the child's guidance counselor from that house, and they bring in all the core teachers, and so you can call a conference and get to find out how your kid's doing and get, ask any other questions that you didn't get to on open school night.
Great. Does anybody
Right,
want
and I just want to add to that it's really easy to access the teachers and ask questions, and they're very open, through the team meeting to speak with you and assist and answer your concerns if you have any regarding your child.
Great, thank you. So there was a word in there that we used. I'm not sure if all of the fifth graders know what it is. It's called core. So why don't you tell me what core classes mean or core teachers mean?
So core classes are classes that you could only have them with your own house. So it's science, social studies, English, and math.
Perfect. Thank you. And what about Samantha? Why don't you tell me what the other classes are? They're called encore classes, I believe they're still called. I haven't been there in a while, but I think they're still.
Yeah, encore or core extension.
Samantha, speak closer to the computer because it's hard to hear you.
So core class or core extension classes are basically an extra class with another teacher. So let's say you have social studies core extension, you can do like projects with your teacher, and you can like research like civilizations, or like for math, there's like projects that you can do for math. It's just like an extra class if you're in that.
Perfect, thank you. And what about Anthony? What are some of the other classes besides core extension are there?
Well, there's facts, tech.
Okay, wait. What facts? What's facts?
Family and consumer sciences. So you learn sewing, health, and cooking.
For all the parents out there, it's home ec.
Then there's tech, which is technology. Then there is art. There's art, yeah.
Great.
And art, yeah, art is art.
Perfect.
And then like a music, which would be orchestra, chorus, and band.
Perfect. And then what's something else that we do, Abby, that is almost like a core class, but it's considered an encore class, but we're learning something brand new?
We have language. So you could take French, Spanish, Italian, or Latin. But I feel like most people take Spanish, but I take French.
That's fine. Okay, moving on. Anthony, I want to go back to what you had said earlier about your friends. So I think one of the biggest fears for a lot of fifth graders is what happens if I don't have a friend in my house, or what does that mean? Am I going to be okay? So Anthony, you touched upon it a little bit and you said, well, I didn't have all my friends in the house, but I did see them at recess and lunch. And then you also said that if you need to, you could switch lunch. So the bottom line is don't panic, right? If you're not in the same house with some of your friends, you're still going to see them. Did that happen to anybody else other than Anthony, where you realized that you weren't in your house with your friends? Did that happen to anybody else? Samantha, that happened to you? Sam, that happened to you? And how did Samantha, what did you do to
so I saw them in lunch, recess. I saw them in my other classes other than core classes like Spanish or tech. But it's also a great opportunity to make new friends, because like you're in a new house and it's good to get new friends.
That's great. I love that advice. Sam, how about for you? Because you said that you didn't have friends at first, or you didn't think you had friends in your house at first. So how did you overcome that?
So yeah, I had a couple of friends in fifth grade that I really wanted to be in the same house with. And I was in the same house with one of them, which was good for like the first week. But it's surprising, like you make friends super fast, like because there's so many new people that in elementary it's like all the different elementary schools, like you'll find someone that I guess like you bond with more because there's more of a chance that like you will, not just one school, it's all of them. You have one.
That's great. Thank you all. Okay, let's talk about, I'm gonna talk a little bit when you get the house letter. So you should be getting the house letter in July. Normally that's when it goes out. And when that happens, I know a lot of times Facebook goes crazy and there's tons of Facebook chats of from the parents saying who's in whose house and what's happening. I just want, and maybe a parent can talk to this a little bit also, but I just want to make sure that we all realize that a lot of times that our children sort of feed off our own anxiety and our own the adults' emotions. So how you're responding to the house placement letter, how you're responding to the transition, how you're responding to all this, the children are going to feel and feed off of. So just keep that in mind when you're going through this whole process. Does anybody want to talk about that a little bit more? I guess the parent, I see you're off mute. Mrs. Treneman, do you want to touch base on that a little bit more?
Sure, I will. I mean, to be honest, I think that is the hardest day of the whole thing because, and I've gotten better as it's gone along with the 4, but it is stressful. The only thing I can say is it doesn't end up mattering at all, but I'm not going to downplay that actual day where your child is looking at you, wants to hear the names. Can you text her? Did you hear any more? And I was keeping a list of her friends. And I mean, girls, I have to say, in my experience, it's a little bit more intense than the boys. One thing that helped is they always had outside activities, like whether it was PYA or CYO basketball or Girl Scouts or art or dance. And you start to hear names, even if they're not from your school. So just, tell yourself, okay, this day it's going to happen. And there's a lot of energy around that day, but just try to keep it in perspective because once the day is gone, then it's all about excitement and you get your letter from your house and the supplies and the teachers and you just immediately, feel connected. And they do make friends very quickly the way they even divide the house in half and you see the core people over and over. So it all works out, but it's a big day for sure.
Abby, I'll go to you in 2 seconds, but that is true. Just because also you're in the same house does not mean you're going to be in the same class. So that's something to keep in mind too, because you have 100 students in one house. And at the same time, you have a section of English, social studies, math, and science all running at the same time. So just because you're there in the same house and get that same house letter, it doesn't mean you'll be actually in classes together. Abby, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I remember I was at camp and my mom works at the camp I go to and I got a letter and it said, "You're in greenhouse." And then it had a list of all the people I knew. And I'm in the house with some of my family friends that we all went to different schools. And I looked at the first 2 names and I screamed so loud. Everyone in my bunk was just like, "What's going on?" But I just remember being really excited.
Good. That's good. And some people experience the other emotion of disappointment. And it's all going to be, that's all, whatever you're feeling at whatever point in time you're feeling it, it's all natural and it's all normal. There's no right way to feel, whether it's excited one day and then really nervous the next day. It's all part of the process. So just keep remembering that. Okay, I am going to have Sam. Why don't you tell us a little bit about those lockers? Because I know it's anxiety producing for some people.
Yeah. So your first day in Weber, you go to your homeroom class, which is like your first class of the day, and that's where you sit until the first bell rings, which tells you to go to your first class. So in homeroom, the first day it's extended a little, so you have time to figure out your locker and get your locker set up. And so they give you the lock, and I think they show video. I don't know if that's what they do to the other houses. And I think it's much easier than I thought it would be. It's much easier than other people think it's gonna be. But yeah, it's a good feeling when you first like open the lock. And then after that, it's so easy that by like this point or right before we had to like go home and, you know, it's just like every time you walk up to it, it's just like you don't even have to be like paying attention to the lock. You just do it and it just opens up. Like you're just in your mind, like after a couple of weeks even.
Awesome, great. Okay, I'm gonna go to Samantha, then I'm gonna go to Abby, so you can add.
Even like if you're really nervous, you can even get like a lock to practice on, and you can just like practice like going one way and then the other, and then practice a code.
That's a great piece of advice. So normally what happens at the end of the school year is that Weber sends us a package of locks and we can practice in the classroom. But since we didn't have that opportunity, I would suggest over the summer, when we're hopefully we can get out of the house a little bit more, go to Rite Aid, go anywhere, just buy a lock and practice, especially if you've never used one of those combination locks before. You won't be able to use the same lock once you get to Weber because Weber issues their own locks, but at least you would have had that practice. Abby, okay, we're ready for you. Sorry.
Yeah, I actually have two stories, but my first one is that when I got to my home base and I was giving my lock, I completely forgot how to work the lock and that I had to like turn it around multiple times. So I thought my lock was broken until my home base teacher came over and taught me how to use the lock, and then it opened. And then I was given my locker, and
Answer that question.
oh, they're not full-size lockers. They're half. But I was given my locker, and it wouldn't open because it was like jammed shut. So I had to get a whole new locker.
Right. Yeah. Some of the lockers are pretty old, so you have to work with it. But yes, exactly what Abby said. They're not full lockers. There's a half locker on the bottom and there's a half locker on top. So you have bottom lockers and top lockers. And so you have to navigate that sometimes with the person who's either below you or above you so you can get in and out of the locker. How many times, Abby T, are you able to go to the locker a day?
You are able to go to your locker 4 times a day. So once in the beginning of the day to like put all your stuff away and get what you need for the first half of the day. Then before lunch, you get to go, and after lunch, and then at the end of the day.
Perfect. Oh, we're on a little bit of a delay, so we're gonna go back to lockers. Well, actually, we're still on lockers, but how high are the top lockers? They are not, you want to answer that, Sam?
So it's not, yeah, top lockers aren't that high. Like they're not that high up. I have a top locker. I kind of like them better. Because like the shorter ones, sometimes like people get like books strapped on their head, but it's like that happens.
It doesn't.
I've dropped a couple like books on people's heads. But
it could happen.
And so the top lockers aren't that tall. Like you can reach everything in there. And even if you're like pretty short, you get to like, you have like the option kind of like there's you have like a bunch of lockers that you could like kind of pick from, I guess, or like they assign you.
You can talk to your home base teacher and they'll let you.
Yeah, you could talk to your home base teacher and they can like tell you that you want like a top locker or like a bottom because you're like this height. Yeah,
Exactly. So if the locker isn't working for you, either way, if the top locker is becoming a struggle or if the bottom locker is becoming a struggle, you could easily talk to the home base teacher and ask them to switch it. That's not a problem. We have another question about how do you remember where your locker is? Anthony, why don't you answer that? How do you remember where it is?
Yeah, in the beginning they put Post-it note of people's names. So you just look for your name. It's not that hard. And also when you get to school, don't fight over lockers. It's always a giant fight to go to the bottom lockers. Don't fight.
Right.
Why is it like just
Everyone
everyone kind
wants
of
to go
prefers?
get home first. to the bus, but buses take a while to leave, so don't be stressed about buses.
Oh, so I see what you're saying. So Anthony is saying not so much for the assignment of the lockers, but when you're trying to get to the lockers at the end of the day, let's say, or at the beginning of the day, that you have plenty of time, you're not going to miss your bus, and it's going to be okay. The lockers, just so you know, are normally outside of what is called your home base room. So and your home base room is one of your core classes: English, science, social studies, and math. And those 4 rooms are very close together. So you're not traveling all across the school to get to those 4 core classes. Samantha, why don't you tell me what you do in home base? Because I don't think they've ever had a home base.
So basically, when you first get to school, you check in and they count attendance in home base.
Come a little closer again to the computer so we can hear you.
When you get into home base, they check attendance. They have announcements, and then at a certain time you leave home base to go to your first class.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so what happens if you're late to a class one of the first weeks of school? What happens if you're late? Abby T, why don't you answer that?
When you're late to in the couple first days to nothing, they don't do anything.
Okay.
They just recommend you a faster way or ask you where you come from so they could see.
All right, so they totally understand that you're new to the school and that you might be late because you're still figuring out the whole entire school and where to go. Perfect. A couple questions. One of the questions, when you are going to your locker, is it hectic? So we sort of touched upon that already, but Abby, do you want to elaborate on that question? And then I'll talk about the other one.
Yeah, it's usually not that hectic in the morning, but then on your way to lunch, it's very hectic. On the way back from lunch, it's a little less hectic, but people are still kind of rushing to get back. And then the end of the day is crazy. And it's just people are running through the halls. But another thing I have to say about the lockers, I'm just going to add on that. Having a bottom locker is not the best. I've had multiple things dropped on my head. That includes a binder, a water bottle, and a lock.
Yes, that can happen. You have to sort of coordinate with the top person. So just to answer the question about how the decision of who goes into what house, it is a very long process that starts with if your child has an individualized education plan or a 504, we take information from those meetings. If your child is enrolled in the English as a new language, we take that information into consideration. The guidance counselor from Weber goes to each elementary school and articulates with the teachers and the guidance counselor at the elementary schools. And that is a part of the equation with that information. We look at everything, and we're big proponents of heterogeneous groupings. So we make sure that, and they also look at the elementary school and gender. So we look at all of that information and we try to make our heterogeneous groupings based on all of that. So every house has children from all 5 elementary schools. Every house has the equal balance of boys to girls. Every house has a balance of children who might struggle with their learning, children who are really can need enrichment with their learning. So we really try to make the groupings very balanced. Okay, some more locker. We're back to lockers. Back to locker questions. We have, can you decorate inside the locker? And then how long do you have with the 4 times you go to the locker? So why don't we, Sam, I see your hand raised. Do you want to answer that?
Sure. So I didn't decorate my locker. I wouldn't really recommend it because, I guess it could be hard to fit your backpack and everything in there. Also, you never know what's gonna happen. I bet like a bunch of people, like when we had to go home and we didn't know like to take everything out of our lockers. So like, a lot of stuff was just left in there for a while. With like, when you go to your locker, you probably have like about like 4 to 5 minutes. It's definitely enough. But
So it's about 4 minutes between each class to walk between classes that you have. And sometimes your classes are right next door to each other. So 4 minutes is going to seem like a very long time. Other times, the 4 minutes when you have to go to one side of the building to the next might seem like you need to walk very quickly and get there on time. So it depends. But you have in the mornings, I think the bell allows you to go to the locker at 8 o'clock, if I'm correct. And then I think you have till 8:07. Is that right? To be inside your home base? Got it. Okay, I'm getting that right. I still remember from back in the day. And then you'll have the 4 minutes before lunch, the 4 minutes after the lunch, and then at the end of the day, you have really whenever the bell rings at 3:10, then you're able to get done and then go. Okay, so to answer Greta's question, if you have an older sibling in Weber, will you be in the same house? So sometimes yes, sometimes no. They don't necessarily take that into consideration. It happened to be that all the Trenemans were, I think you said, were all in the yellow house, and the Benton Tylers, both of you were in the blue house. But I think the Lobes, one was one and one was the other. So it really depends. It doesn't mean you're automatically going to be in the same house. And ID cards, that's a good question also. How do ID cards work? Because that's something very new from Salem to elementary. So that's a great question. Anthony, why don't you start with ID cards and we'll go to Abby T after that.
So ID cards are really used to buy lunch, really, and used in the first couple weeks of when you go onto a bus. Once they know you, you don't really need to show your ID card anymore. Just don't forget it at school in the first couple of weeks.
What else do you use ID cards for, Abby T? Do you know? Oh, I love that. Let's show that closer, Abby. That is your ID card. Yeah. I love that. Okay, Abby T, why don't you tell us what else you use it for?
So at lunch for like recess, you have a opportunity to go to the library. So to get into the library, you'll have to show them your ID card, like to get a book. I would recommend keeping your ID card in your binder. So like you have it wherever you go.
Perfect. The other Abby you want to add, and then Samantha, you can add after that.
Yeah, so this is actually my second ID card because I lost the first one.
During gym class because it was in your sock.
It was not. It was not in my sock, and it was not during gym
All right,
class.
sorry.
That's all right. But so all I had to do to get a new one was go to the Yellow House office, bring $5, and they just printed me a new one. And I'm actually glad I did because this is my 6th grade picture instead of my 5th grade picture on the card. So
that was like definitely one of the first time, and it was pretty early in the year. It was one of those times where she came home and was like, I lost my ID card, Mom, like fix it. And I said, I don't know how to fix that problem. You're going to have to figure that out. And she had to do the research and she figured it out. And that was like one of the first examples of like how she was sort of taking the reins of her experience at middle school and without my influence or help.
Samantha, I'm gonna go back to that in a second, what you just said, Mrs. Latoff. But Samantha, do you want to add to the ID cards?
That was the same thing I was going to mention.
You were gonna say, what was that?
About losing your ID card.
Okay.
And just had to replace it.
Okay, yeah, so you just go right to the house office. But you do get your ID cards on the first day of school with your agenda book, with your locker and assignment and your lock. So that all happens the first day of school. And the first day of school, normally we'll see what happens in the fall for where we're at, but normally they give an extended period of time in the beginning of the year. So you're able to sort of navigate, especially the 6th graders, navigate the locks, get the locks on. So you'll have plenty of time. But I just want to touch base what Mrs. Lotzoff said about the having the children start taking the reins of their own education. So while it's a big jump from Salem to Weber in some ways, they're also very developmentally ready for it. They're ready to be a little bit more independent. They're ready to move around to different teachers, meet new people. They start outgrowing the Salem size, and it's good for them at this stage. But another great thing is to start giving them more ownership. So if, for example, you have a question even about schoolwork, instead of them saying to you, sending the email to the teacher right away, have them go speak to the teacher directly and say to them, why don't you ask your teacher? And if for some reason you need me to help you, I will help you. But first step would be to have them go speak to the teachers directly and be their own advocates. I think that might be hard especially first timers, hard to do that. I don't know if any of the parents want to jump in also and add to that, since you've experienced it yourselves.
I think that's great advice, and I got better as I went along. Now I pretty much try to avoid emails to the teacher until unless it's a big situation. I think the quicker they advocate for themselves, the teachers are all willing and able to help, and this is the time to learn it. I mean, middle school is the perfect transition for that. It's not like, it's scary or intimidating, and they'll feel proud of themselves. And I think we talked about Aspen before, but you could see grades and if there's an issue, and obviously stay connected with what's going on. But, it's a good time to learn time management. Assignments are not going to always be for the very next day. And all of this stuff it's perfect for you to be there beside them, but not being as, maybe involved as you were in their elementary school experience.
That's good. Absolutely. I'm going to touch upon Aspen because that keeps coming up and I forgot to answer it earlier. Aspen is the student information system that Port Washington uses, K through 12. We underutilize it really at the elementary school, but hopefully that's going to be changing over the next couple of years. But what you'll be receiving in the beginning of 6th grade is an ID and password for a parent portal. And then you could log on to the parent portal and you'll be able to see just what they talked about, grades. Now, some teachers post every single assignment on there and you get to see step-by-step what's happening. Other teachers post not as much on there, and they use a different method. So you'll get to know that. Some teachers in the upper grades use a platform called Edmodo. There's all these different technology platforms that are being used, but Aspen is where you'll be getting your 10-week progress report, your 5-week progress report, and your report cards for each quarter. So you don't get them anymore in paper. It's all online. And someone mentioned earlier about team meetings. The important thing is one big shift from Salem to Weber is that there's no parent-teacher conferences that are always there in existence. So if you want to have a meeting with the teachers, you need to call the counselor and you need to initiate that as a parent to meet with them. So that's something that's important, a big difference. To answer your question about rescheduling the Weber transition day, we're hopeful. Ms. Javelin is going to, I alluded to it in the letter I sent home to all the 5th grade parents. She's going to be monitoring what the conditions are for where we are with social distancing and hopefully have something over the summer. She's hopeful, maybe in August. So she will keep you definitely abreast of what's happening in that department. So our goal is to get the 6th graders in to the school before it starts. So fingers crossed, and we'll be able to do that sometime late summer. Does anyone want to talk about homework and tests, about what the difference was from Salem to Weber and how you were able to navigate that? Sam, you want to take that?
Sure. So I feel like homework, it's not as bad as like people say. Like, yeah, it's not as bad. The tests are, I think you have more tests when you're in middle school than in elementary school, but they're not bad. And yeah, homework's not bad either, but a lot of times, cause like you may have, cause your core teachers all like communicate about like how much work they're giving. So it's like everyone will, like you'll have enough work, and like this teacher won't give a lot, and that teacher won't give a lot. Like
You won't
this
have like all of your tests in one day.
yeah, like this teacher will give a lot, and this teacher will give a little, so it's like balanced out. But the thing is, you don't just have core classes. Like you also have other classes. Like I take French, and then like orchestra, things like that. And so it sometimes you have a lot. Like I could have a lot of work some days and just have like not at all other days. But on the weekend, that was also another concern of mine. But on the weekend, you like the work you have is like not bad at all.
Okay, good. Samantha, do you want to continue that?
Also, usually core teachers discuss when their tests are going to be, so usually they're not on the same day. But like in 7th grade they are, but usually they're more split out, like 2 every week or like once a week.
Right. They try the core teachers. Abby, do you want to continue answering this question?
Yeah, I remember another one of my concerns was homework over the weekend, but for me, there really hasn't been any homework over the weekend, so it's really not a big thing to worry about. I think we'll start getting some in the higher grades, but there's really nothing to worry about in 6th grade.
Okay. Thank you. Anthony?
So something to help you, well, personally in Yellow House, there was homework clubs. So there's always clubs after school where you could talk to teachers and communicate with the teachers after school in clubs and stuff, and meet with your friends in these clubs.
That's
And
great.
the homework club was great because if he had any questions or he had activities later in the day, he could just get rid of the homework, and get it done with right after school with the assistance of a teacher.
Right. The homework club is 2 times a week, if I remember correctly, right? Okay. Anthony, since you're on, do you want to talk a little bit? Is the work, there's one question of, is the work more daily or long-term? I think some of us answer that, but do you want to continue?
Well, they do a lot of projects in Weber, but most of it's daily, but there's a good amount that is long term.
So it sounds like there's a balance.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Abby, I want you to answer the question, is gym very hard? Since you mentioned it before and you said that you're not really a gym person, so I want you to go back to that for a second.
I feel personally for me, gym is kind of hard just because I hate doing any running. And it's a lot of the games we play, they are fun. But I would definitely rather be in another class other than gym. But I do find it personally difficult, but I know that a lot of other people do not.
Does anyone on this panel love gym or like gym? Abby T, you like gym? Okay. Yeah, so I think the great thing about Weber and high school is that you have all these different periods during the day and you're able to find what your interests and really are. And you have 42 minutes, give or take, depending on some of the periods are a little bit longer, but you have about 42 minutes. And so you have 42 minutes of math, 42 minutes of English, 42 minutes of social studies, so on and so forth. So if it's not really your favorite subject, you know that's 42 minutes of it. Phys ed, just so everybody knows, is every other day. It's not every day. And music is every other day, normally on the opposite day of phys ed. I do want to touch upon a couple of things because I want to answer the question about, do any of you have cell phones and what do you do with those cell phones during the during the day? Anthony, what do you have a cell phone and what do you do with it during the day?
Well, in the morning, you have to put your cell phones in your lockers, and then you just pick them up after school. And after the final bell, you could talk with your friends, really. But you can't use them during the school day. They're off limits.
And that's sort of one of those important rules of Weber, that you really are not allowed to have your cell phones out during the day, and you should really keep them in your lockers. Are there any other cell phone? Oh, while I'm talking about cell phones, I just want to touch base for families that it's up to the individual family. A lot of families give children cell phones, right? But there's some families that choose not to. And that is your decision. It doesn't mean that just because you're going to Weber, it means you have to have a cell phone. Does it help in certain areas? Absolutely. But it's not, you don't have to. I do want to talk to all the fifth graders that are listening and the parents about social media for a little bit. Because that is, it's huge and it needs to be taken seriously and it needs to be monitored and we need to be careful. And this is also true for group chats that might be occurring and for anything. Whatever you put out there cannot be taken back. And we need to be kind and respectful of each other. And if you find yourself in a situation where you're part of a group chat or you're seeing something on social media that makes you uncomfortable, you need to get out of that. Get adult help and ask them, what do I need to do to get out of this? How do I get out of this? Don't engage in the conversation and leave. There's a lot. Does anyone want to talk about social media a little bit as from a parent perspective? How you balance that, how you do that, what happens? It's a hard one because yes, yep, okay. This is
so Abby's giggling here because I don't allow social media, and she asks me about once a week when she's going to get it, but she's nowhere near ready for it. So she got a phone at the beginning of the school year with a lot of parameters and rules that she needed to follow, with the hope that she was going to use the phone to primarily communicate with us and with her friends via text, and that's what she's been doing this year.
Perfect. Right. Because yes, Mrs. Chinaman.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. And when you have kids that are different ages, it's also hard that, and my first one, I said, it says you have to be 13. It's illegal for it to, and I was very strict with him. With Abby, I mean, I do think girls use it in different ways. And so we monitor her. She texts. What I find is the minute they get it, it loses its interest and draw a little bit. I mean, she does, she just has Instagram now. So, and, you have to watch it and, make sure that, she's, good about using it. I mean, I would love for there to be no phones in general. It's just not realistic. I find it's such a time. I try to have them without phones at all for homework, just so they can focus for more than 5 minutes in a row. But the reality is it's here, at least the phone usage. And, now I have someone in college and, he obviously they have to learn to manage those skills and, work efficiently and, they don't have it at night in their rooms and things like that. You do what you can, whatever is age appropriate, but it's a constant challenge for sure.
I think that's really important about not having it in the rooms at night, or even the iPads. When I was at Weber and I was an assistant principal and a counselor there, and that was just really in the start of all of this, but the amount of messages that we would receive that, there was 200 text messages that were coming through the night, or they were up till 2 a.m. because it's hard for them to put it down. So if you are getting a phone, try to make sure that it's not in the room at night. And if the fifth graders try to say that they need it for an alarm clock, you do not need that one for an alarm clock. There's plenty other alarm clocks out there that can wake you up. So I'm just looking at the time. Yes, Sammy, you want to add to social media and to cell phones?
Sure. Like I was recently on a group chat where there are other people who are making like pretty bigoted remarks. And so, like I removed myself from the conversation and like no one bothered you really. So like there is like a way to use your like phone and social media like efficiently. Like you don't want to get caught up in a lot of stuff that like other people are talking about. Like you might get in trouble for something other people did. So you just need to like remove yourself from that.
Perfect. Is there a dress code? A question. Is there a dress code? So I see head shaking no. So there's no dress code. And do you have to change for gym? You want to answer that, Abby?
You don't have to change for gym. A lot of people do change for gym. I did at the beginning of the year, but I tend to not anymore because it does take a while, and there are a lot of people in the gym locker room. So I just I wear sneakers, I wear leggings, and I wear a fit top on A days, which is the days I have gym.
Perfect.
And then I just have to go put my books in my locker and go back up. So you don't have to, but a lot of people do.
Samantha, you want to answer that too? Add to that?
Yeah, I suggest like wearing the clothes that you would for gym to school, so you don't have to spend time like wasting your time when you could be going to your class, so you're not late.
Perfect. That's what Abby sort of just said too. And make sure you wear deodorant, everybody. I know that might sound weird coming from Dr. Ferrante, but it is time to start wearing deodorant. And especially on those PE days in the summer, in the fall, and in the spring. So before, we just lost somebody. I think we just lost, we lost the Benson Tylers. Okay, hopefully we get them back. Are you showing your binder, Abby? Is that your binder?
Yeah, can we just talk about this binder for a second?
Yeah.
The huge zip up binder.
So this binder has a strap and you can wear it. And so a lot of the kids get this to hold all of their all of their subjects, paperwork and stuff in here. And it's enormous. And it was really helpful. And I think a lot of the kids get it. I will tell you that the zipper of these are not very well made. And we've been through 2 of them already and ultimately decided to abandon this and in favor of 2 smaller, still large, but smaller binders that she actually said she preferred in the end. But what's nice about this is that you kind of like can put all of your pens and pencils in this little pocket, and she put her ID card in there. And so it was like a one-stop shop for all of the things that she needed to carry around during the day.
It is very helpful.
Which was really helpful. And that something like this won't be on the supply list. It was like a tip that we got from a current 6th grader that this is what she had. So wanted to share that with you.
Right. And the teachers are flexible. They give you suggestions of organizational tools that work for their classes. But if you need to adopt and change, do that. Don't stay so stuck. Do what works best for you when organizing. Okay, so I'm looking at our time. So I'm going to wrap us up, but I'm going to ask everybody 2 questions before we leave. So one is for the children, and then the next one is going to be for both the parent and the child. So the first question I'll go through is, what is your favorite part of Weber? Sam, why don't you start with that and we'll go around.
Okay. So my favorite part of Weber is definitely the independence, because like the lines in Salem, like that was fun, but towards 5th grade and once you did it for like 6 years, it kind of got like annoying and everything. So I love walking around. It's much easier than like sitting in a line, but yeah, you can choose to like stay inside at recess, like it's the library, or but sometimes it's annoying because like when you're not in like the line, like in the morning, there's a bunch of people like trampling each other, but it's fun.
Thank you, Sam. How about you, Abby?
I was gonna say what Sam said, but since you pretty much wrapped that up, I kind of like the freedom, and I know me and a bunch of my friends, we did curtains up last year, and we got kind of close with Miss Friedman. So on some days we eat lunch in her room with her, and that's kind of very fun. So we're not in the cafeteria, and that felt a little bit more like it felt more independent than being in the cafeteria monitored. Yeah, that's probably
perfect. That's good.
my
Awesome.
favorite.
Samantha, how about for you?
I like Weber because of the independence also, because like you get to choose stuff. Like you can go to club, you can go to the library, like you can sit with whoever, and like you can walk to your own classes, and there's just more freedom.
Awesome. Yep. So independence seems like a running theme for a lot of it. How about for you, Abby?
I like how there's different teachers
Mm,
And I also like from sports, I had friends who were from different schools, and I like how now I could see them more often.
that's great. Absolutely. And Anthony, how about for you? What's your favorite part of Weber?
Also, independence, how you're able to do instead, like pick your own lunch, and instead of going to recess, going to the library, just
That's great.
being on your own through the halls.
Awesome. Okay, so for our last question, looking back, what would be one piece of advice you wish you had before entering Weber? And same for parents. So what you wish you what piece of advice would you give to parents? So Sam, you want to start? And you can say pass if you want to.
Okay, that's hard.
It is a hard one.
Like really, the teachers in Salem really covered everything.
Do you have advice?
Oh, do I have advice?
Like that you would give yourself?
Oh, that I. Okay, so I would probably tell myself to like. Actually, no. It's actually like much easier than you think. Like once you get there, I think a lot. Like I was like a lot. I should have been as scared when I was in 5th grade because it's like the teachers do everything for you. Like the teachers are great, and you don't have a problem because there's everyone there to help you.
So that's good advice. Don't stress out too much. That's your advice. That's great.
I think that's also good advice for parents too, actually. Also, like the whole social dynamic changes, and it could be, it's nerve-wracking for a parent to watch, and watch these kids go through, new friend groups and all that kind of stuff. And if you could just kind of like step back a little bit and let them do their thing and just keep talking to your kids, but you don't need to stress.
Perfect. Abby and Mrs. Latov, what's your advice for them?
I think my advice is, I feel like I don't really have that much advice because I feel like everything was pretty much handled, like Sam said, at Salem. But I think
And you were ready, right?
I
Just
was
like be confident in like being ready.
just be confident and don't stress out. It's easier than it seems.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people think, oh, middle school's so hard. We're switching classes. We're gonna get so much homework, but you really don't. It's so much easier.
Thank you.
Oh, and I got the binder at Target, and then my other one at Staples. So
Perfect. Thank you.
My advice is going to go back to something that I said at the very beginning, which is that I think I took for granted that I have a very capable student here, that she was going to just sort of figure it all out. And I needed to help her with some organizational skills and time management and planning. And I regret that I just sort of assumed that she would just be able to figure all of that stuff out, and wish that we had talked about it a little bit ahead of time to set some things up for her to be successful.
Thank you. How about the Benson Tylers?
One piece of advice I would give the 5th graders would be, like, you may have a different view of Weber right now, but when you get to Weber, it's so much different than I thought it was going to be, because people think it's hard, but it's actually pretty easy. You just need a couple of things, like you can ask people for help. You always have your friends. You have your parents. You have a lot of people to support you. Mm-hmm. And like Abby said, you just need confidence to go into Weber. And yeah.
Thank you.
I was going to build on what Sam said and what everyone else has said. It's just so nice to know that they can all self-advocate for themselves if given the opportunity. Just like it's hard, but take a step back and just trust your child, but also let your child know that there are no wrong questions. There's nothing wrong with asking for help if they need it. So just, let them figure things out with a little bit of, guidance from behind, and they'll all do great.
Great. Thank you. The Trennemans?
One piece of advice I would give is especially if you don't have a lot of people in your house that you're friends with, to be open to making new friends.
Good one.
And even if you do have like all your friends in your house, still try to make new ones.
That's a great piece of advice. Thank you.
A lot of what people have been saying, don't stress, don't feed into any drama or over emotion, especially in the beginning, till they ground themselves. Or maybe you're waiting for that first day and you're expecting one thing and it could be another, and just try to be even for them and help them navigate, because they'll find their way, and it all works out.
Perfect. And how about for the Gabriellis?
My advice was to be prepared, because bring a big backpack, because from my experience, I've always had to carry my binder, which is really heavy and freezing cold. So I had a pretty big backpack and that didn't even fit. So definitely be prepared to hold a lot of textbooks too. It's a lot. They're very large.
Thank you.
Right, and I mean, this was something that we both were learning along the way, about the binders and the textbooks, and it's a great opportunity, and it's so wonderful to see him mature in middle school and just, I guess, trust the process, because he was more ready than anything, I feel, more ready than me to enter Weber. So, it's all good. Don't stress. It's going to be okay, and ask for help if you need. There's a lot of parents going through the same thing. So
Very true. Thank you. Well, I can't thank all the panelists enough. I really appreciate you sharing your time with us this afternoon. It was so good to see your faces, because I never get to see your faces. And for the fifth graders, we will be in touch. We'll be seeing you for some of our upcoming events. Especially, I get to see all of your faces for our reverse car parade. So you get your yearbooks and your certificates that way. So that will be really nice to see you then. If you have any questions, Ms. Javelin will be in your classrooms. Thank you, everybody. Just take care of yourselves. Be safe. Be well. And thank you very, very much. I appreciate all of your help. So bye, everybody. Thank you.